Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for watching my posts. So, I wanted to talk about more about my experience growing up and becoming awakened. So, I grew up in an environment that was quite dysfunctional. I love my parents and I love my family, but it was quite dysfunctional. We endured civil war, we had to move a lot, and there was a lot of trauma. So my way to cope with that experience, I had the notion when I was a child that I came here before to this planet and incarnated several times here. So, and I couldn't really tell that to my parents because they had a belief system that was mostly religious, and neither my siblings were people that would be open to my experiences. So, in order not to be mocked, I decided to keep silence and just kind of like cope with life on Earth, and just try to, find other ways to participate and not to reveal who I was until I felt safe. So, um, I wanted to share that during that time, I observed a lot of the behaviors that I experienced in my childhood and through humanity. And I found a theme that is based on ignorance, I would say darkness, if you could call it that. But it's like a virus, right? So I always connected with the Supreme Creator because that's real. Like the only thing that helped me to survive all the tribulations and challenges in my life have been to surrender my atoms, the core of myself, to the Supreme Creator, because He's the source of all the living things that we see, that we experience. He's the reason why we're here. Like there's only, the universe and this planet, this realm, only exists because of the Supreme Creator. If He decides that we should disappear, we will disappear and go back to source. So there's different dimensions of that, of course, and I could go into that. But what I wanted to say was that I saw the systems in which this ignorance or darkness has permeated to such a point in our core foundations of everything we are, from finances to how we relate to each other. And yeah, and it's really is embedded so much in our psyche and our systems of living that it's created so much war and separation. So I have observed by looking deeply into this topic that the only way that this darkness is so very insidious, penetrates our core self, is through our core emotions. So we have seven virtues, and we also have seven deadly sins. And basically, I'll give you a small example. If your core wound is low self-worth and your trauma is based in low self-worth, this trauma is reinforced through many experiences. So this ignorance and darkness manifests in a very insidious way through experiences that we have through childhood. So this core wound becomes so much more than what you really are, and it blocks your connection with source, to the point that we formulate our characters and our identities without any of the virtues of the seven virtues that all life forms should have on earth. So when someone formulates all their beingness and their personality and their characters on jealousy, we kind of become portals for this darkness and ignorance to permeate our behaviors and our actions. So I believe we can say we are all human and we all make mistakes, but some of these mistakes are driven by these wounds, and these wounds become portals for the darkness. So these low frequency vibrational thoughts and feelings suddenly become so big that one can commit murder and corrupt the integrity of our energy fields, that corrupts our health and all the good things that we can manifest. And through these actions, we become slowly more and more corrupted, that we become the embodiment of that darkness. So we become like a beam for negative energy to permeate everything that we do. and to the point that we can become sociopathic and psychopathic. So this doesn't happen itself on its own. It's also how we eat and our diets. So I noticed that to observing darkness and working with clients with afflictions, with different types of forms of trauma and behavioral issues, addictions. So it's always connected to a core wound. And so anybody can be a portal for the darkness and ignorance to permeate society and to influence things that happen. And because these emotions, once you become so connected with this idea of living from your lower aspect of creativity, of being a child of the creator, let's say, so you start beaming negative energy and your actions come from that lower frequency, and you do not believe that you can evolve spiritually or in any other level without functioning from that perspective, from that belief system. So your lens of perspective becomes foggy, like embedded with these kind of ways of thinking. It's like looking at the motherboard of a computer. Once it becomes corrupted and this wound festers, it corrupts all the other gifts that the being has. So you do not evolve from it. So it could be lust, it could be lust-based, it could be pride. They all come from this lower sense of selfness, and this corrupts the entire system. The programming of the mind becomes corrupted, and without a being not working on themselves, without an individual not taking ownership and say, my system, my motherboard is corrupted, I need to kind of like disentangle from this darkness that is consuming. It's like having dust on the computer, right? So you just have to dust it off and get to the core system that has been corrupted, and then all the other systems will function and remove all the other blockages. And then we can become light bringers into reality, the light of consciousness. You can evolve from that level of low frequency emission. And these systems are so connected because a lot of illnesses that we have come from these systems, and a lot of the parasites that create illnesses come from this system, this kind of problem that is connected to the ignorance and darkness. So if you have this abundant planet, but we keep putting poison into it, into our foods, and then we don't take our power back because we become disempowered, because we have core wounds of lack, greed, and pride, and not being good enough, and not even connecting with the supreme creator, that we don't believe in anything. Like people say sometimes to me, oh, I'm an atheist, and I consider that also a religion, because you invest in not investigating the nature of reality and saying that everything is just as it is. And in a way it is maybe so, but you have to look inwardly. You have to look inwardly and investigate your beliefs and perceptions, and how your emotional system, how your emotional intelligence is responding to the data that you're perceiving through your actions of what you're giving and receiving. So I wanted to share that a lot of people I've met wanted to be teachers, spiritual teachers, and wanted to be enlightened, but they forget this part of the so vital to work on their core wounds. Because if we don't transmute that, if we don't get to the bottom and recycle the blockage, start recycling all the stories that are connected to that wound, we completely lose the sight of why we incarnated here, and to reach our true potential, to become self-realized, So the light is in having that emotional hygiene, belief hygiene, and to really get to the core of what one is lacking. I'm not saying you have to be the best superhuman, but to study the other virtues connected to those wounds, to enforce them through to either having therapy, regression therapy, or healing, or becoming more proactive in how it pops up into our way of thinking, into how we are navigating, how we are choosing to create. Because every time you're making a choice, it's like you're initiating the the dance of creation with the supreme creator, with your elements. And then like we have a dream, a desire, and if this desire comes from a lower place, from a wound, then this desire, without you healing the wound, you're just going to create the same frequency that that wound gave you. So if you're a company, and let's say if you're running a company and you want to feel financially secure, that's not a bad thing. But if your wound in lack is so aversive that you lose yourself, that you corrupt your system, that you have no ethics or morals, that it's all self-serving and not synergetic, then you're not operating from a space of conscious or high frequency. And this means that everyone that you draw into it will be in this vampiristic relating, way of relating with you, that you are draining their energy rather than empowering both sides. And all the systems in society have been built that way. And you can observe that. You can research this topic. I'm not telling you anything that is not new. I'm just making the connections that is all connected to our energy system. And it's like if you watch The Matrix, or if you watch Star Wars, it's the kind of same principle, that you can be corrupted by the dark side of the force. And that's how they plug into us. So to unplug from the Matrix and become Neo, you have to go within and remove those blockages. Remove those blockages that stop you from reaching your true potential and connecting with the Supreme Creator and becoming the Creator, becoming the gods that we hear about, And these are the good news. And you could, let's say, put religion into it. Sometimes we need an archetype like Jesus to have a sort of like a role model, a frequency to jump to, and this will inspire you through discipline, to having discipline in prayer or affirmations, or following that kind of a path. We can then use prayer and affirmations to raise our frequency from the blockages that have been hindering us to grow bigger, because these are all wounds connected to aspects of ourselves that actually are connected to a super consciousness. And once you tap into that, once we tap into the super consciousness fully, to the we become like gods. We become super masterful, and we're able to navigate through even more interesting state of beingness, and we feel more healthy, And this idea of the devil and Lucifer and darkness exists in that sense, as I would say, like Star Wars exists, the dark side of the force, the light side of the force. And that's the epitaph that we have to go through these times, that we see all these wars in the world, and we see the light of consciousness being corrupted through these emotions such as resentment that have been carried from our ancestry. If you look into your ancestral line, it's the same pattern of wounds that you can see manifested in the present reality in your family, and how dysfunctional patterns of relating, So it's having the discipline of a teacher, of a spiritual teacher like Buddha or Christ, and becoming the Buddha through exercising self-awareness and self-discipline and mental hygiene, emotional hygiene, in order to raise your frequency and tap into the level of mastery that the Supreme Creator had agreed with you before you incarnated. Because we're all spiritual teachers, we're all the avatar, we're all Neo, but we have to go through that process of how to navigate through it. So I come here and I would like to show you how to attain that level of self-mastery. Rather than you being jealous of me and what I do, let me show you how. Because we need more Neos, and we need more superhuman beings here, and we all are superhuman. But don't let me just tell you, let me prove it to you. Let me show you how to walk that path. I have shared some interesting processes that we can achieve that, so you can start doing the work by yourself. But please, please, please wake up. Don't let me be awake on my own. It would be such a wonderful world if we could all become masterful of our gifts. Because imagine how many heroes would there be and how many wonders we could create together, not only in business and in industry, but all over the world. There's so much to do. There's so much need of heroes and light bearers, and mastered beings, enlightened beings. So the path to enlightenment is not easy. It's not easy to work on your wounds. It's not easy to practice, emotional hygiene and mental hygiene, because we haven't been taught how. But if you start teaching your kid, I'm sure you'll see how easy you can also incorporate into your routine. So make it part of your routine to practice emotional hygiene and belief hygiene. Don't let the darkness consume you, that you become corrupted and let your motherboard, because if the motherboard and your programs become corrupted, imagine what we're doing to the planet. Then we'll consume everything. The darkness will consume all the beauty that our ancestors fought so hard to leave us, to show us. I see so much beauty in the world. There's so many creative people. There's so many hardworking people. There's so many people that are really good with details. And I would love to see a world that we could honor all these masters, these beautiful beings and their creativity, and, transform it into a more sustainable system of relating, living, and relating with our nature, relating with our mothership, our earth. So we have become lost to these wounds, to this darkness, to such an extent that we are corrupting ourselves and everything that we touch. And I really wanted to thank all the people that have showed me their darkness. And, I haven't met many people that were givers in my life or that showed me genuine love. And I'm a totally super giving person, and I love loving. But all the human beings I've seen have been corrupted with these wounds, and we're not built that way. We're not meant to be like that. And there's a reason why that has happened, that we've forgotten our true selves. And I'm calling on all the light workers, all the warriors, all the people that want to reach enlightenment in this lifetime and become awakened, become self-realized, to please start working on yourselves. It's never too late to start. We all have wounds. We all have fought battles and bottles. We all have fought battles. But the divine Supreme Creator is great. And I really want you to witness that in yourself, at least before you leave this body and become corrupted to the point that you miss the point of the whole experience. It'd be so lovely that we could celebrate together and be in that same frequency. It's not impossible. Everything is possible. You are possible. So please reach out when you're ready. Book a session with me. I can mentor you. I can support you on your journey. You are not alone. I understand there's many teachers out there, but just remember how often you've been following so many different routines and rituals and all these things. Has it got you anywhere? Are you getting any more masterful? Or are you just in a loop and your energy is being drained by another being? Because the darkness, what it creates from you, is you become a vampire, an energy vampire, a leeching vampire. And you can see that in the industries that we have. So like if you look at just the influencer industry, and I've been observing these systems and how people operate, there's so many scammers and people, they copy each other, like all the adverts look the same. It's so boring. And the Supreme Creator created us all with different soul essences and different gifts, and I was so excited when I incarnated, and I was looking forward to just seeing like how everyone was going to sprout into beautiful butterflies, into beautiful creators. And everyone is so copying each other because they lost themselves, because they became corrupted from the inside. And if your wound is lust, there's a way out. If your wound is gluttony, there's a way out. If your wound is greed, or pride, there is a way. Even if you've been become so severely narcissistic, there is a way. There's so many teachers now coming out, and they have been afflicted with some of these wounds, and they're teaching, and they're not ashamed. So don't be ashamed. It's never too late. You can become self-realized. You can become enlightened. You can become an avatar. You can become Neo. There's no shame that in accepting that you've been in the darkness. There's only light within you. You just missed it. You just missed the point. And it can happen with anyone. It's like missing a lesson. And then you kind of wake up like when you're 60 and you realize, oh my God, I could have become self-realized before I leave this body. And it would be a joy to hear from you. And thank you for listening to me. Thank you so much. I wish you all well. I wish you all love. Namaste.